My mom made a bold declaration. Anyone who wanted to marry me would have to pay a $50 dowry, so my sister Khloe started telling everyone. Aside from being a little chubby, a little tan, and a little short, my brother is actually great husband material. Upon hearing this, her friends completely lost their composure and started avoiding me like the plague. That is, until the day a handsome, clean-cut man appeared with my sister, Khloe Williams, at a gala. The moment they walked in, all her friends went wild. "That's the brother you said was a little chubby, a little tan, and a little short?" It was all because Khloe was famously overprotective of her little brother, afraid I'd be snatched up by her friends. She constantly told everyone I was short, ugly, and cheap. As a result, I hadn't dated anyone since I turned 18. My adoptive parents were worried sick, always asking me what kind of girl I was looking for. But Khloe would just laugh and pull me into a hug, declaring, "You want to marry my precious little brother? You'll have to prove you can treat him better than I do." And I was so busy burying my face in her embrace that she never saw me blush.
She had no idea that she was the one I loved.
My feelings for her were forbidden, so I kept them perfectly hidden. That is until the night she found out. The woman who had spoiled me rotten my entire life slapped me for the first time, calling me shameless. The very next day, she announced her engagement to my best friend and told me not to forget to come to their wedding. I think I cried all the tears I had that night. It was then that I got a call from an agency saying they had found my birth parents, and so I resolved to leave her behind. I called my birth parents, who were living overseas. "Mom, Dad," I said, "I'm ready to come live with you." Hearing me say that, my parents on the other end of the line burst into tears of joy. "Oh, Ethan, that's wonderful. If it hadn't been for that earthquake all those years ago, our family never would have been separated for so long. We'll come get you right now." A bittersweet feeling washed over me. I took a deep breath to steady my emotions. "Just give me 2 more weeks. I have some things to take care of here. I'll come as soon as I'm done." Hearing that, my parents seemed to remember. Of course. We weren't thinking. "The Williams family raised you for so many years, and we heard your sister doted on you since you were a child. You need to say a proper goodbye." My heart clenched at the mention of Khloe. A massive earthquake when I was 6 separated me from my parents. I was eventually placed with the Williams family for adoption. The Williams were an old money, prominent family. Mr. and Mrs. Williams were always busy with work, so even though they adopted me, they didn't pay me much attention. It would be more accurate to say I was raised by Khloe than by the Williams family. When I was 7 and terrified of thunderstorms, she would sing me lullabies until I fell asleep. When I was 10 and wanted the same snacks and toys my classmates had, she bought out the entire corner store, spoiling me like a little prince that everyone envied. When I was 14, I collapsed at home with a high fever, and she was the one who ran around getting me hot water and carefully feeding me my medicine. Whatever I wanted, she always made sure I got it immediately. Everyone knew how obsessed she was with her little brother, but no one knew that, over countless nights where we only had each other, I had fallen in love with Khloe. But I never dared to confess. I could only secretly write about my feelings for her in my journal or confide in my best friend, Liam Miller. I never imagined that Liam would tell Khloe. She stormed into my room, her face grim, found the journal, and tore it to pieces, throwing the shreds at me. Before I could even say a word, she slammed the door and was gone. From then on, she found every excuse to avoid me, refusing to see me. Even on the rare occasions we ran into each other, she would look at me with icy eyes as if I were a complete stranger. I wanted to demand an explanation, but then I walked in on Khloe pinning Liam against a wall, kissing him passionately. I guess some things are just fated. Khloe and I were never meant to be. My years with the Williams family were nothing but a beautiful dream. Now it was time for me to get back on my own path, so I made my decision. I would go back to my real family, and I would let go of the love I'd held for Khloe for so many years. The next morning, I went downstairs early.
Seeing my adoptive parents warmly calling me over for breakfast, I smiled obediently, sat down with them,
and told them that I had found my birth parents and had decided to move abroad to be with them. Mrs. Williams immediately grasped my hands. Her voice filled with joy for me, but a hint of sadness crept in at the thought of our parting. "Oh, Ethan, that's wonderful news. I'm so happy you found your real family. Have you told your sister yet?" I froze. Should I tell Khloe? All she cared about now was Liam. What difference would it make if I told her or not? "What did you want to tell me?" A crisp, cool voice asked from behind me. I whipped around and saw her standing in the doorway, stunningly beautiful and graceful. Mrs. Williams started to speak, but I quickly cut her off. "It's nothing." "You're back, Khloe," I said, hearing myself call her that for the first time in a long while. Khloe stopped in her tracks and gave me a long, searching look. When had I stopped calling her sis? Was it when I was 18, 15, or even earlier? Now that I was calling her that again, her expression darkened. She stared at me for a long moment as if sensing something about me had changed. After a moment, she lowered her gaze and walked over, placing a gift bag on the table. "Mom, Dad," she said flatly, "these are from Liam. Just a little something. He hopes you like them." Mrs. Williams's face lit up. "We love them. Liam always picks the most wonderful gifts. Did you thank him for us?" Mr. Williams stood up as well, a rare smile playing on his usually stern lips. "Khloe, next time you visit the Millers, take that tin of tea from the cabinet." Mr. and Mrs. Williams had always been very pleased with Liam as a potential son-in-law. They kept dropping hints about inviting Liam and his parents over for dinner on the weekend, which was a clear sign they wanted to discuss wedding plans. I sat there watching them in silence, a wave of loneliness washing over me. I dug my nails into my palm for a second before letting go. In that moment, I felt it more clearly than ever. I was an outsider. But soon I wouldn't have to worry about any of this anymore. With that thought, I calmly stood up and headed for my room. Hearing the movement, Khloe, who was chatting with her parents, glanced up just in time to see my back disappear through the doorway. I had only said a single sentence to her since she'd arrived, which was completely out of character for me. That afternoon, I went to the county clerk's office with my documents to process my change of residency. I saw Liam sitting next to Khloe, watching with a smile as she peeled an orange for him. Khloe's long, nimble fingers peeled the fruit, carefully removing every bit of white pith before breaking off a segment and holding it to Liam's lips. Liam blushed and obediently took the piece of orange from her fingers. Khloe chuckled softly, pulled a napkin from the dispenser, and gently wiped the corner of his mouth. "Sweet." Liam nodded, then offered a segment to Khloe. "You have some too." Watching their intimate exchange, I quietly averted my eyes and headed for the door. Suddenly, Liam called out to me. I turned back to see him waving me over. "Khloe has the day off, so we were going to the park." "Want to come with us?" I shook my head. "You two are on a date." "I don't want to intrude." A small smile played on Liam's lips. "We're all family. It's no intrusion." He put a special emphasis on the words all family, as if to remind me of my place. In the past, hearing those words would have felt like a giant hand squeezing my heart, leaving me breathless with pain. But now, seeing Khloe only as my sister, my heart was as calm as a still lake. "I have some errands to run. Maybe next time." Hearing my second refusal, the smile on Liam's face stiffened. His voice trembled with a hint of hurt. "Ethan, are you still mad at me for stealing your sister? Is that why you won't hang out with us?" At that, Khloe quickly wrapped her arms around Liam, frowning. "I love you." How could it possibly be stealing? Those words made Liam's ears turn red. Khloe laughed softly, threw her arms around his neck, and stood on her toes to kiss his cheek. "If he doesn't want to go, he doesn't have to." I forced a smile. It was time to let go. From now on, we would go our separate ways. I politely said my goodbyes and turned to leave. After finishing up at the clerk's office, I headed over to the racing club. One entire wall of the office was covered in trophies and photos from our races. I looked at it all, my heart filled with a mix of pride and sorrow. I never thought I'd be leaving so suddenly. "Ethan," my coach said, walking in and clapping me on the shoulder. Looking at the man who had been my coach for 10 years, the sadness I'd been pushing down rose in my throat. I dug my nails into my palm and took a deep breath. "Coach, I'm moving. My birth parents found me, and I'm going to live with them overseas." The coach's eyes widened in surprise, but his shock quickly turned to joy. "That's fantastic news. Are you going to keep racing over there?" He knew how much I had poured into racing over the years. I looked at the photos on the wall, a flicker of determination in my eyes, and nodded with a small smile. "Racing is my dream. I'm not giving it up. I'll definitely keep going." The coach nodded, then asked tentatively, "So, you're leaving right away? The national championship is just around the corner, and you have a real shot at winning it all this year?" I nodded. "I've already talked to my parents. I'm going to take care of things here first. I have 2 weeks, which is just enough time to compete." The coach relaxed and clapped my shoulder again. We talked for a little while longer before I grabbed my bag and headed home late that evening. When I walked in the door, I was surprised to see Liam was still there. Listening closer, I realized they were discussing the wedding. Mrs. Williams, I'm completely overwhelmed by all the choices for suits and tuxedos. I was hoping Ethan could help me decide. After all, we've been best friends for so long. He knows my style, Liam said just as I walked through the door. Mrs. Williams immediately waved me over. Ethan, your future brother-in-law, is stressing out. Why don't you help him pick out some things for the wedding over the next few days? I saw the smile crinkling the corners of Liam's eyes, but the moment our gazes met, it twisted into a smirk. I looked down, considering for a moment before declining. Sorry, I can't. I'm busy with the club. I only have 2 weeks left, and there's a lot I need to do before I leave. I don't have time to go shopping with Liam. The moment the words left my mouth, the atmosphere in the room froze. Khloe looked at me, her eyes ice cold. Your best friend is getting married. Can't your things wait? It's settled. I'll call the club and get you the time off tomorrow. If she was going to use her authority to force me to take time off, how could I refuse? Hearing that, a bitter smile touched my lips and I didn't say another word. For the next few days, I had no choice but to drop everything and devote myself to helping Liam with his wedding shopping. I thought we just hit a department store, but he dragged me all over Chicago from the South Loop to Lincoln Park. He wanted my opinion on everything from the major decisions down to the smallest wine glasses. Every time I suggested he just ask Khloe, he'd whine, "What's the point of asking your sister? She's so busy. All she does is throw money at the problem. She doesn't get it." You get me? Last time I asked her to help me pick out rings, she just had a jeweler send an entire case to my apartment and told me to pick one. Liam complained, but his eyes were full of barely concealed pride. I just listened silently, not giving him the jealous reaction he was clearly hoping for. Just as Liam was about to say something else, he caught sight of a figure in the doorway. "Khloe!" he exclaimed, his face lighting up. "What are you doing here?" I looked up to see him run over and throw his arms around Khloe, planting a sweet kiss on her cheek. Khloe's voice was full of affection. "Didn't you say you wanted to go to that chapel up in the mountains? I took the afternoon off to drive you." Liam, with his arm around Khloe, suddenly seemed to have a thought. He looked back at me. "Ethan's been helping me out all day. Why don't you come with us?" Khloe didn't even spare me a glance, simply picking up her shopping bags and heading for the door. As the distant sound of bells echoed, the thick fog began to lift, revealing the mountain view outside the chapel. I kept my head down, focusing on the stone path beneath my feet as I walked. "What's this?" A voice suddenly broke my concentration. I looked up to see Liam standing in front of an old oak tree, studying the colorful ribbons tied to its branches. "May Ethan always be joyful. May each year be better than the last. May Ethan live a long life free from sickness and harm and be surrounded by good people. May my boy Ethan be safe and sound always." From Khloe, Liam read each one aloud, his voice growing thick with jealousy with every word. But as I looked at those ribbons, my heart trembled and my mind drifted back in time. My health had been fragile ever since the earthquake. I was always catching something. To help me get well, Khloe came to this chapel every week to tie a ribbon for me, praying for my health and safety. I never realized she had left so many over the years. The ribbons were still there, hanging on the tree, but there was no going back for Khloe and me. "You two are so close," Liam said bitterly. "It makes me feel like a third wheel." He couldn't bring himself to read anymore. His face hardened and he turned to leave. Khloe quickly grabbed his arm, patiently coaxing him. "Don't be silly. You're my fiancé. He's just my brother. If you don't like them, I'll have them taken down." With that, Khloe turned and ordered the staff with her to pull down all the ribbons. One by one, the ribbons fluttered to the ground where they were trampled underfoot, stained with dirt. Soon, the branches were filled with new ribbons, all covered in loving messages Khloe had written for Liam. Liam finally smiled again. He shot me a triumphant look, then feigned concern. "Won't Ethan be upset if you do that?" Khloe smiled lightly. "A brother is hardly as important as a husband." That seemed to placate Liam. He was glued to Khloe's side for the entire drive back to the city. I was in the back seat, just closing my eyes to rest when the car suddenly lurched forward. Before I could even ask what was happening, there was a deafening crash. The car had broken down, smashed through the guardrail, and after rolling several times, ended up wedged in a ravine. My head slammed against the seat in front of me, and my vision swam with black spots. When I came to, I found myself pinned in my seat. A sharp branch had impaled my arm, and blood was everywhere. Beside me, Liam was unconscious, though he looked unharmed, likely having just fainted from the shock. Khloe in the driver's seat reacted quickly. She smashed the window and climbed out. She stumbled for a moment before finding her footing. She glanced at me, gasping in pain, and then at the unconscious Liam. After a brief hesitation, she lifted Liam onto her back. "I'm taking Liam first. I'll send someone back for you." Without another look at me, she hurried away with Liam on her back, as if terrified something might happen to him. The moment I decided to let her go, I promised myself I would never cry over her again. From now on, I would live for myself. But as I lay there, pinned by the car in that ravine, I couldn't help but remember the earthquake. I had been buried in the rubble then too, alone in the darkness. I was trapped for 3 days and nights. After the Williams adopted me, I had nightmares about it every single night, waking up shaking and crying under the covers. Back then, Khloe would always rush into my room and hold me tight. "Don't be scared, sweetie," she'd whisper. "I'm here. I'll never let anything hurt you again." But now, I watched her walk away further and further until she disappeared from view completely. The blood kept pouring from my arm. The sky grew dark, but Khloe never came back. I gave a bitter laugh, mustering my last ounce of strength. I ignored the searing pain and dragged myself out from under the car. Gritting my teeth, I yanked the branch out of my arm and began to crawl inch by painful inch. I don't know how long I crawled, blood and tears mingling on my face. Finally, covered in my own blood, I reached the main road and passed out. When I woke up again, I was in a hospital bed, my arm wrapped in thick bandages. My last memory was of a kind stranger finding me. And in all the time I'd been in the hospital, Khloe hadn't visited me once. The nurses told me she was taking care of Liam. He only had minor injuries, but she had apparently rented out an entire floor of the hospital for him to recover in peace. Hearing that, I instinctively looked down at my own bandaged arm. I remembered the time I was hospitalized for a simple cold, and Khloe had acted like it was a major crisis, never leaving my side. The day I was discharged, a lot of friends came to pick me up, including a girl who used to have a crush on me when she handed me a bouquet of flowers. I instinctively started to refuse, but she cut me off, stammering, "Ethan, don't get the wrong idea. They're just to celebrate you getting out of the hospital. I know you're leaving soon, and I just hope you have a good life." I was taken aback for a second, then her and took the flowers. But as I turned, I saw Khloe standing in the doorway. I rarely saw her truly angry, but her face was a mask of fury. She stared at the flowers in my hand with eyes like chips of ice, then turned and stormed away. I was busy for a bit and a little confused, not sure what I'd done to make her so angry, but I didn't dwell on it. When I got home, I put the flowers in a vase. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. I steadied myself against the wall and slowly went to open it. When the door opened, Khloe was standing there. Our relationship had been frosty ever since she found out how I felt about her. She hadn't knocked on my door since. It was like a thunderclap in my head. As my brain short-circuited, her kiss deepened and she whispered a name in a husky voice. "Liam." So she was drunk and thought I was Liam. I snapped out of it, shoved her away, and ran out of the room. Thankfully, she didn't follow me. The next day, when I came out of the guest room, Khloe approached me with a frown. "Why was I in your room?" The impatience and suspicion in her voice left me speechless for a moment. Seeing she had no memory of the previous night, I started to speak, but she cut me off coldly. "Did you put me in there?" "Ethan, I told you it's never going to happen between us. I'm getting married. Haven't you given up yet?" I froze, then lowered my head, saying nothing. What was the point? Loving her was my original sin. In her eyes, everything I did was wrong now. Seeing me standing there with red-rimmed eyes, head bowed in silence, Khloe's breathing hitched. Just as she was about to step closer, a soft male voice called from outside. Khloe. Liam walked in. He was about to smile and put his arm around her when his smile faltered. "How did you cut your lip?" Khloe subconsciously touched her lip, then shot me a deep look before finally saying, "It's nothing. Probably a mosquito bite." After that, I didn't see Khloe alone again. She was busy with Liam, and I had to focus on my training. One day, as I was getting ready to train at the track, my coach walked over with Khloe and Liam. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce our newest driver, specially approved by Miss Williams herself, Liam Miller. Let's give him a warm welcome." Amid the applause, the coach looked over at me. "Ethan, you'll show Liam the ropes." After the introductions, the coach respectfully led Khloe and Liam away to get the paperwork sorted. The moment the door closed behind them, the room erupted in murmurs. I heard Liam tried to join the club before, but he didn't have the skills to make the cut. "Goes to show what Miss Williams can do," One word from her and he's in just like that. We had to jump through all those hoops to get in. Some people have all the luck. The jealous comments continued, and for a moment my expression was conflicted. No one knew Khloe better than I did. She was aloof and principled, a stickler for the rules. Despite her power, she had never once used her influence like this. But now she was breaking her own rules for Liam. She must really love him. And so Liam joined the club, and I became his mentor. I took the coach's instructions seriously and tried my best to teach him, but Liam was completely unmanageable. He was always half-hearted and found a new excuse to skip training every day. This time, before I could stop him, he was gone again. I went to the window to call after him, only to see Khloe waiting for him. They shared a long kiss before getting into her car. I didn't watch any longer. I calmly closed the window and went back to my training. I got home very late that night and saw Khloe standing by the front gate. Her expression was unreadable in the dim light, but it looked like she was waiting for me. I had just started to walk over and ask what was wrong when she demanded coldly, "Ethan, can you stop picking on Liam? If you have a problem with him, just say it." I was already exhausted, and her words sent a wave of complex emotions crashing over me. Hurt, sadness, helplessness. I didn't have to guess what lies Liam had been feeding her. I didn't bother to explain. I just walked past her and went to my room. After that, I backed off, which only made Liam more arrogant. He'd show up at the club just long enough to check in, then leave. The other guys were furious and wanted to confront him, but I held them back. It was his life. If he couldn't pass the evaluations, he'd be kicked out. He had to be responsible for his own choices. Besides, I didn't have time to waste on him anymore. I thought that would be the end of it, but I never imagined Khloe would suddenly come to me and ask me to give my spot in the championship to Liam. First, I didn't understand. It wasn't until she asked me again that I looked up at her. "You want me to give him my spot?" I tried to control my emotions, but I couldn't keep my voice from shaking. Khloe didn't seem to notice my distress. "He's going to be your brother-in-law," she said coldly. "Besides, it's just one race. Is it really that important?" At that, I finally lost control. "Khloe, you know exactly what racing means to me." I dug my nails into my palms, my voice breaking. Khloe's heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. She seemed to remember all those years, all the times she'd seen me training my heart out, her fists clenched at her sides. In the end, she said nothing more and silently walked away. After Liam joined the club on Khloe's word, it slowly split into two factions. One faction, led by me, was focused on our goals. The other, led by Liam, spent all their time slacking off and sucking up to him, hoping he'd put in a good word for them with Khloe to get them perks. The two groups had never clashed directly until today. After practice, Liam stopped me with a smile. "Hey Ethan, there's something I don't get. Can you show me?" I frowned instinctively. Before I could answer, one of Liam's cronies shoved me. What's that supposed to mean? "Liam was nice enough to ask for your help." "What's your problem?" One of my guys stepped in front of me. "What's your problem?" "I'd like to know what Liam's game is. He had all of practice to ask, but he waits until we're done. Is he trying to start something?" I didn't want to fight, so I pulled my friend back. But they took it as a sign of weakness and got even nastier. Scared now? Let me tell you, Liam is going to be the top driver here. You should be honored to teach him, Ethan. Piss him off and he'll have you thrown out. As they were talking, someone threw the first punch, and in an instant, both groups were brawling. In the chaos, Liam suddenly appeared at my side and shoved me hard. I was already on the edge of the platform. As I started to fall, I grabbed Liam and pulled him down with me. We both tumbled off the platform. Screams erupted around us, and the scene descended into chaos. By the time Khloe arrived, we were both being wheeled into surgery. Seeing us both covered in blood, Khloe's face went pale. Her usually steady voice trembled with panic. "What's their condition?" The doctor rushed out. "Miss Williams, Mr. Chun, and Mr. Miller both fell from the platform. Both have broken legs. Mr. Chun also took the brunt of Mr. Miller's weight. There's only one dose of the advanced treatment for this kind of fracture, but Mr. Miller's legs will heal fine without it." Before the doctor could finish, Khloe cut him off. "Give it to Liam." Hearing her decisive tone, I, who had just regained consciousness from the pain, felt like I'd been struck by lightning. She knew perfectly well how important a driver's legs are. The doctor had just said Liam's legs would be fine without the treatment. I fought through the pain, using every last bit of my strength to beg her through my tears. "Khloe, please don't, I'm begging you. Please give the medicine to me. It doesn't matter if you don't love me. It doesn't matter that you left me in that ravine, but you know how much my legs mean to me. I can't lose them. I have to keep racing, please. By the end, I was sobbing uncontrollably. Huge tears rolled down my pale cheeks. The boy who never cried, no matter how much pain he was in, was now completely broken. Khloe's hands hanging at her sides clenched into fists. Just as she was about to speak, Liam, who had fainted, was jolted awake by the pain. Remembering the fall, he started crying in terror. "Khloe, my legs, they hurt so much. Help me." Hearing him, Khloe shook my hand away and rushed to Liam's side. "I'll have the doctor give you the treatment right now." Without another moment of hesitation, she urged the doctor to administer the shot to Liam. I watched, trying desperately to pull myself toward them to grab the syringe from the doctor's hand, but my broken legs were a dead weight, pinning me to the gurney. The cold needle pierced Liam's skin, and I watched helplessly as the medicine slowly entered his system. 3 days later, I finally regained consciousness. This time, Khloe was at my bedside. Her eyes were red and her face was etched with exhaustion, the whites of her eyes threaded with red veins. When she saw I was awake, she reached out a trembling hand to touch me, but I flinched away. Her hand froze in midair. Her voice was hoarse. "You'll be able to walk, but you'll never be able to race again." "It doesn't matter," I whispered. "I'll take care of you. Liam is my fiancé." I couldn't just abandon him. I should have felt so many things. Anger, despair, grief, pain. I should have screamed. But all those emotions piled up inside me until all that was left was a profound sense of powerlessness. My voice was raspy as I choked out, "Please just get out." A long silence filled the room. Finally, Khloe stood up, murmured, "Get some rest," and slipped out of the room. The moment the door clicked shut, I finally looked down at my legs and let myself cry. My dream of racing was crushed into dust. After the doctor told me I would never race again, I became a shell of myself. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just sat in a chair and stared out the window. On the day of the championship, I ignored the Williams family's protests and went to the track, taking a seat in the very back row. I watched Liam take my place on the track, soaking in the applause and adoration that should have been mine. After the race, Khloe went up to him with a bouquet of flowers, and everyone else crowded around to congratulate him. I was the only one left sitting there, stunned, watching the crowd gather and then disperse. I don't know how much time passed before I finally stood up and walked over to them. Seeing me approach, Khloe instinctively stepped in front of Liam. "If you're angry, be angry with me. Don't hurt him." I just looked at them silently, my eyes as empty as a stagnant pool. Liam shot me a taunting smile, then tugged on Khloe's sleeve. "Khloe, don't be like that." I did take his spot after all. He has a right to be angry. I shook my head. "I'm not angry. I came to give you a gift." My words seemed to startle everyone. "Follow me." With that, I walked out of the stadium. The moment they stepped outside, a firework shot into the sky, exploding in a shower of light that rained down like flower petals. One after another, the fireworks illuminated the night sky. A flicker of shock crossed Khloe's face. The next second, I said to her, "Khloe, do you remember the day I won my first race? You set off a huge fireworks display for me. You said you hoped my future would be bright and that I'd be as free as the wind. Now I'm giving these fireworks back to you. I wish you and my brother-in-law a long and happy life together." When I said brother-in-law, her pupils contracted, and she instinctively looked at me. It was the first time I had ever called Liam that in public. Her heart clenched. She started to speak, but I had already turned to leave. On the eve of the wedding, the Williams household was in a state of chaos. Late at night, the downstairs was brightly lit as Mrs. Williams directed the staff in moving wedding supplies and decorating the house. Upstairs, the light was on in my room as well. I sat on the floor, carefully placing every gift Khloe had ever given me into a large box. I packed them all away, then carried the boxes slowly down the stairs. In the quiet of the night, the house was filled. With festive decorations everywhere, each one silently reminded me that this family was about to welcome a new member. But I didn't even look at them anymore. I carried the box toward the door and walked right into Khloe, who had just returned from the miller's. Seeing the large box in my arms, a flicker of panic crossed her face. "What are you doing with that?" I replied flatly, "Getting rid of some things I don't need." With that, I tried to walk past her toward the door. Watching my retreating back, she felt an inexplicable tightness in her chest. Ever since the accident, I'd been like a different person. She had expected me to throw tantrums about not being able to race, but instead I was calm, almost unnervingly so. I glanced back at her and she said, "Liam was hoping you would be his best man." My expression remained neutral as I politely replied, "He's my brother-in-law now, not my best friend. It wouldn't be appropriate. You should ask someone else." Without another glance at her, I walked out the door. It wasn't that I was unsuitable. It was that I would be gone on their wedding day. I found Mr. and Mrs. Williams and handed them a box. "Mom, Dad." I looked at their kind faces, my eyes welling up. "I can't be at the wedding tomorrow. My birth parents booked my flight. It's for tomorrow morning. I'm leaving." Mr. and Mrs. Williams exchanged a surprised look. "Why so suddenly?" I smiled and shook my head, pulling a thick envelope from my pocket and handing it to them. "It's not sudden. I should have left a long time ago. This is all the money I've saved over the years. It should be just enough to pay back everything the Williams family has spent on me for the last 15 years. Mr. and Mrs. Williams immediately shook their heads, trying to push the money back into my hands. "Oh, honey." But I firmly pushed it back. "Please, you have to take it." Then I knelt on the floor and bowed my head to them 3 times, a gesture of deep respect and gratitude. I looked up, my eyes red. "Mom, Dad, thank you for taking care of me for the past 15 years. I will never forget your kindness. I won't be able to be here for you in the future. So please take care of yourselves and live long, healthy lives." On the morning of the wedding, Khloe should have been getting ready, but instead, she paced restlessly outside my bedroom door. Staring at my closed door, Khloe's heart suddenly ached. She had a feeling she couldn't leave, that if she did, she would lose something irreplaceable. "Khloe, what's wrong?" I asked, opening my door to find her standing right outside. The cold distance in my eyes made her heart jump. She took a deep breath. "Why don't you come with me?" I paused. "Go with her to do what? To watch her and Liam parade their love for everyone to see?" I glanced at my watch. I didn't have time for that. I shook my head. "I have a few things to take care of. I'll meet you at the venue later." Khloe started to say something else, but Mrs. Williams called from downstairs, "Khloe, we're going to be late." Despite my refusal and her mother's urging, Khloe still didn't move. It wasn't until her mother's calls became more insistent that she finally suppressed the panic rising in her chest. "Find me before the ceremony starts," she said. "I need to talk to you." I didn't answer. I just kept my eyes lowered, but she seemed to need an answer, repeating herself with intensity. "You have to find me." Seeing that she wouldn't leave without an answer, I had to lie and nod. "Okay, I will." That finally seemed to reassure her. She dropped her hand from the doorway and turned to leave. I watched her go downstairs and get into the limousine, followed by the rest of the family. Finally, the car horns blared, and the procession drove away, growing smaller and smaller in the distance until it disappeared completely. Only then did I whisper, "Happy wedding, Khloe. Goodbye." With that, I picked up my packed suitcase, walked downstairs, and out the door. I headed for the airport, my back straight and determined, and I never looked back. The Miller-Williams wedding was the talk of Chicago. Crowds lined the streets where the motorcade was scheduled to pass, hoping to catch a glimpse. Cheers and congratulations followed them. But inside the limousine, Khloe couldn't bring herself to feel happy. She thought back to that morning outside my door, and a sense of unease settled over her again. A growing feeling that she was missing something important. Because the Williams family held a higher social standing than the Millers, tradition was bent, and it was Khloe who came to the groom's house. The Williams weren't concerned with old traditions. They just wanted to make it clear to everyone that Liam Miller was lucky to be marrying their daughter, that she was marrying down, not climbing the social ladder for the sake of an alliance. The Miller house was equally festive, decorated with flowers and streamers. Liam's groomsmen stood on the balcony, watching for the arrival of the Williams family's motorcade. Finally, as the clock struck 11, the line of cars from the Williams estate came into view. The men excitedly rushed to Liam's side. "She's here. Miss Williams is here." After a flurry of excitement, Khloe finally made her way upstairs, bouquet in hand, to Liam's room. Seeing Khloe in her wedding dress, Liam's heart pounded with excitement. He was finally marrying her. After some playful teasing from the groomsmen, Khloe and Liam finally got into the limousine and headed for the reception venue. During the drive, Liam kept studying Khloe. He couldn't shake the feeling that she had been distracted and distant ever since she arrived. He reached out and gently tugged on her sleeve. Khloe. She seemed to snap out of a daze. What is it? Is something wrong? You don't seem very happy. Normally, he wouldn't have thought much of it, but this was their wedding day. A bride wasn't supposed to look like this. Khloe rubbed her temples and forced a small laugh. I was just so nervous about today that I barely slept last night. That seemed to reassure Liam, and he gently put his arm around her shoulders. The limousine pulled up to the hotel, and the two of them went into a private room to rest and talk for a while. Khloe then got up to leave. Remembering her words to me that morning, she began looking for the event manager to send for me. As she waited, her mind suddenly went blank. What was she going to say to me? Was she going to tell me that Liam was my brother-in-law now, and that I needed to hide my feelings from him? That I could still live at home after Liam moved in? That in her heart, I would always be her little brother? She ran through a dozen different conversations in her head, trying to figure out what to say when I arrived. But when she saw the manager return alone, all her carefully planned words dissolved into panic. Where's Ethan? The manager opened his mouth but didn't seem to know what to say. When Khloe had sent him to find me, he had run into Mr. and Mrs. Williams on their way upstairs. When he told them what he was doing, they had exchanged a look. They knew that by now I was probably already on the plane. With the ceremony about to begin, they knew that if Khloe went looking for me, she would find out something was wrong and it would delay the wedding. So, they told the manager to lie to Khloe, to say that my leg was bothering me and I had to go home to make the lie convincing. They even produced an old note of mine they had found, one I'd written but never given her. In my handwriting it said, "Not feeling well, went home." Khloe still felt that something was off, but just as she was about to question him further, the officiant reminded her that the ceremony was about to start. Khloe hesitated, then pulled back and headed toward the main hall. The manager watched her go, breathing a silent sigh of relief. As the gentle piano music began, Khloe looked at Liam waiting for her at the end of the aisle and began to walk toward him. Liam's face was beaming with a smile he couldn't contain, but for some reason her mind suddenly pictured me in a tuxedo. I was always a bit of a rebel. I probably wouldn't wear a traditional tux, but something in my favorite black and gold, and he wouldn't be waiting at the altar like Liam. He'd be walking briskly toward her, not with Liam's shy smile, but with a wide, confident grin, and he'd affectionately take her arm. Perhaps she was too lost in this fantasy because when the officiant asked if she would take the man before her as her husband, she subconsciously said my name. She was still holding the microphone, and my name echoed through the entire hall. The guests were stunned at first, then the room erupted in whispers. Isn't Ethan the Williams' adopted son? Why would she say his name? In the front row, the faces of both sets of parents paled. Mr. and Mrs. Williams exchanged an uneasy glance. How could their daughter make such a mistake at a time like this? Mr. and Mrs. Miller's faces darkened, and they turned to the Williams, demanding an explanation. On the altar, hearing Khloe say my name, Liam's face went white. He gripped his trousers tightly, his voice trembling as he asked, "Khloe, what are you saying?" He instinctively reached for her hand. They were so close. Why would she say my name? In the past, Khloe would have quickly recovered and smoothed over the incident. But now, as she scanned the faces in the crowd, some familiar, some strange, she couldn't find the one person she was looking for. The next moment, ignoring the calls from the crowd, she bolted from the altar and ran out of the hall. Countless voices called her name, angry, sad, desperate, but she didn't look back. She just ran. Liam started to run after her, but then his vision went black and he collapsed. The entire wedding erupted into chaos. Khloe jumped in her car, slammed on the accelerator, and sped toward the Williams estate. She remembered the look in my eyes that morning, the yellowed, creased note the manager had given her, the guilt in his eyes. A terrible premonition washed over her. She screeched to a halt in front of the house and ran inside before the car had even fully stopped. She took the stairs 2 at a time. She rushed to my room and threw open the door. The room was empty. All of my things were gone. Khloe's face fell. She grabbed a passing housekeeper. "Where's my brother?" The housekeeper, startled, stammered. "The young master. He left with his suitcase early this morning." The terrible feeling in Khloe's chest intensified. She pushed past the housekeeper and started to run downstairs right into her father, who was storming in. "You ungrateful child. Stop right there." Khloe struggled to get away, but in her haste she slipped and tumbled down the stairs. Seeing the pool of blood spreading on the floor, Mr. Williams' vision went black and he nearly fainted. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, but it had turned into a complete disaster. The Williams family rushed Khloe to the hospital, where the doctors, after saving her, delivered another shock. She was a month pregnant. When the Millers heard the news, they all gathered happily in Khloe's hospital room. They had thought the marriage was ruined, but this was a silver lining. Khloe was carrying a Miller heir. She wouldn't be able to get away now. Liam was the most ecstatic of all. He couldn't believe his luck, a child at this crucial moment. When Khloe woke up, she found everyone gathered around her bed, treating her like a precious, fragile object. "Khloe, you're pregnant now. You can't take any risks. Now that you're awake, you need to apologize to Liam. Running out of your own wedding has caused a lot of talk." How could Khloe possibly agree to that? She had to find me. She had to know where I'd gone. Khloe sat up in bed, determined to go find me, but her father wouldn't allow it. He waved his men forward to restrain her, but she fought them off, enraging her father. "You ungrateful girl. What are you doing? You're pregnant. You can't be running around like this." "I don't care." "Where is Ethan?" Remembering what the housekeeper had said, Khloe's heart began to pound. Her father's face hardened. "Why are you asking about him?" "Your priority right now is to come with me and apologize to the Millers." When her father refused to answer, Khloe tried to push past him. Her father closed his eyes. "Restrain her." A group of men swarmed forward and dragged her to Liam's side. Her mother slapped her hard across the face. "Do you have any idea what day it is? Do you realize the shame you've brought on both our families by running away?" Mrs. Miller's expression was even grimmer. "Khloe, if you didn't want to marry my son, you should have just said so. Why humiliate our family like this? How is my son supposed to face anyone after this?" Khloe clenched her fists, her lips pressed into a thin line, and said nothing. Just then, the door to the room opened, and Liam emerged, his face pale, his eyes closed. Mrs. Miller immediately forgot about Khloe and rushed to her son's side. Her mother looked at her coldly. "Why did you run away to find Ethan?" Recalling her daughter's strange behavior that day, an impossible thought began to form in her mind. Khloe clenched her fists, unsure of what to say. What could she say? At first, she had only wanted to tell me to accept Liam as my brother-in-law, but when she found out I was gone, she had to find me. And what then? Her mind flooded with images of me, happy, sad, broken, and finally the look of peaceful release on my face that morning. Gradually, the images began to merge into one. The moment I had finally worked up the courage to confess to her after she found my journal, "Khloe, I love you." A ringing filled her ears, and she instinctively pressed a hand to her chest. Her mother had seen enough of the world to recognize the change in her daughter's expression. The impossible thought finally escaped her lips. "You went to find Ethan because you suddenly realized you're in love with him, didn't you?" In the past, Khloe would have immediately denied it. But today, not seeing me at the wedding, not finding me at home, she had been consumed by a desperate need to find me. The feelings she had buried so deep had broken through the surface and grown into something she could no longer ignore. Seeing the look on her daughter's face, her mother's suspicion was confirmed. She slapped Khloe again. "He's your brother. How could you have such filthy thoughts?" The same words Khloe had thrown at me 3 years ago were now being thrown back at her by her own mother. The force of the slap snapped Khloe's head to the side, and a wave of grief washed over her. Today, she finally understood just how much those words could hurt. To have your feelings, your secret love that you've never even spoken aloud, branded as filthy, her mother was shaking with rage. "It doesn't matter how you feel about him now. Ethan has gone to live with his birth parents. He's never coming back." Khloe whipped her head around to stare at her mother. "Ethan found his birth parents? Why didn't anyone tell me? Why did you keep it from me?" Her mother snorted. "For the past 3 years, I've watched the once inseparable siblings grow distant, and I knew something had gone wrong between you two. And after the way you've treated Ethan over the past month, all for Liam's sake, it's no wonder no one wanted to tell you anything."
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Khloe's face went white as she remembered the past month. Tearing down my wishing ribbons to please Liam, leaving me alone in that ravine, and worst of all, giving the only dose of that crucial medicine to Liam, ensuring I could never race again. Her face grew paler and paler. She stumbled, nearly falling. A sharp pain shot through her chest, and all she could hear was the frantic pounding of her own heart and her ragged breaths. Her mother looked at her coldly. "I don't care what you were thinking before. You are married to Liam now, and you're going to be a mother. Put those other thoughts out of your mind and focus on your life with him. Even though Khloe had run out on the wedding, everyone, including both families, considered Liam to be the Williams' son-in-law. Khloe opened her mouth to speak, but her vision suddenly went black and she collapsed. When she woke up again, Liam was sitting beside her, his face streaked with tears. The day's events had been a devastating blow to him. A wedding is supposed to be the most important day of a person's life, but the woman he loved had run away for another man. How could he ever show his face in public again? Caleb and I froze. Ryan must have noticed our reaction because he asked with concern, "What's wrong?" Caleb gave an apologetic smile. We probably can't. My cousin, he doesn't really go to racetracks anymore for personal reasons." Ryan quickly backtracked. "Oh, then forget it. You guys are guests. The last thing I want is to make you uncomfortable." He immediately told his family's assistant to cancel the appointment and then led us toward a park instead. At the racing club, Liam was coaching a driver on the simulator. Ever since the news broke about what he'd done, the club had suffered too. Members had been leaving in droves for other clubs. With its reputation tarnished, it was struggling to attract new wealthy members. Finally, my old coach had managed to pull some strings and attract a few potential investors. Just as the team was in the middle of a heated practice session, the coach walked in, his face grim. He clapped his hands. "That's enough. Everyone go home." Faced with the coach's sudden outburst, the drivers exchanged confused glances. Even Liam, who had been sitting off to the side, stood up and walked over to the coach. "Why are we stopping?" he asked. The coach's stomach churned with anger at the sight of him. But given who he was, he could only say coldly, "How should I know? The Millers just called. They're not coming. They're pulling their investment." His words were like a spark in a tinderbox. The room erupted in anxious chatter, and one of the younger drivers even started to cry. They had all been counting on that investment to fund their training and upcoming competitions. Hearing their cries of despair, the color drained from Liam's face. He clenched his fists. "Why?" he demanded. The coach, his patience worn thin, snapped back. "How the hell should I know?" Liam didn't remember leaving the club. The afternoon sun beat down, stinging his eyes, but he felt nothing. He walked home in a daze and ran right into Khloe as she was heading out the door. He asked automatically, "Whoa, where are you going?" "What's it to you?" Khloe didn't spare him a second glance and started to walk past him. Her mother had just received an invitation from the Millers for the old man's birthday party. Normally, she wouldn't have been expected to go, but she'd heard that Ambassador Harrison's son would be there. After the incident at the house, everyone knew that I was the ambassador's son. At the thought of finally seeing me again, she threw all caution to the wind. She was going to sneak over to the Millers and see if she could run into me. Her dismissive tone ignited a fire in Liam's chest. "What do you mean it's none of my business? I'm your husband." She stopped, her foot hovering in the air, and turned back to him, her voice cold. "We never got a license. We never finished the ceremony. You're not my husband." With that, she turned and walked away without another look. Liam gritted his teeth and secretly followed her. He knew she was in a hurry to see me. Ryan showed me and Caleb around for hours, and we were all in high spirits when we returned. But as we approached the main gate, I saw a familiar figure. From the moment I had completely given up on Khloe, I had never wanted to see her again. I instinctively started to turn down another path, but Khloe's sharp eyes had already found me. "Ethan," she called. I sighed. There was no avoiding this. I turned and looked at her, my expression cold. Khloe moved as if to embrace me, but the two men with me instinctively blocked her path. In the past, Khloe would have ordered them out of her way, but now she no longer had that kind of authority. Especially since one of them was Mr. Miller's own grandson, someone she couldn't afford to cross. Caleb looked at her coldly. "What do you want with my cousin?" he asked. He had heard stories about what she had done to me. Before we left, my mother had warned him repeatedly to be wary of the Williams family, especially Khloe and Liam. Khloe was taken aback by his question. She opened her mouth, but what could she say? That she only realized she loved me after I was gone, and that she wanted to win me back? And as for Liam, once we were back together, she'd get rid of him. They weren't legally married after all. She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on me, standing behind them. It had only been 6 months, but I looked healthier and happier than I ever had with the Williams. The sadness that had always clouded my eyes was gone, replaced by a new light. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I never should have treated you that way. I always thought I didn't love you. But after you left, I realized you were the one I truly loved all along. As for Liam, he was just a tool I used to push you away. So please, can you give me another chance? She sounded like a penitent wife, begging her husband for forgiveness after years of wrongdoing. But I wasn't a husband waiting for his wife to come to her senses. I listened to her supposed regret, my heart filled with bitter irony. But didn't you say you only saw me as a brother? Didn't you say my feelings were filthy and would bring shame on your family? You used Liam as a tool to drive me away, and I left just like you wanted. You're the one who created this mess, and now you're the one who wants a do-over. Khloe, you can't have it both ways. My words hit her one after another, and I saw her fingers tremble. Back then, she had been so desperate to drive me away. The cruelest things she could think of were what she had said to crush my feelings. I thought I was over it, but seeing her again, all the pain I had buried came rushing back. Khloe, you're asking me for another chance. But why didn't you ever give me one? I demanded. When we were in that ravine, when I begged you for that medicine to save my legs, why didn't you give me a chance? Why didn't you give me any hope? My voice shook, tears streaming down my face, eyes burning with resentment and rage. We had known each other for 15 years. She knew my legs were my life, and still, she gave that treatment to Liam, who didn't even need it. I had nightmares for weeks after that day. Caleb, hearing my outburst, put a supportive hand on my arm, his face filled with concern. I shook my head, unable to stop the flood of words. Khloe, I did a lot of thinking after I left. It's true. I was young and reckless, and all I wanted was to be with you without thinking of the consequences. I can understand if you hated me for that, but all I ever did was love you from afar. Why did you hate me enough to take away my ability to race? You said you would take care of me. Do you really think I could believe that? My chest tightened as I spoke, the hurt spilling out raw and unrestrained. Khloe struggled to breathe, my words cutting into her like a knife. She didn't know how to answer. Back then, she hadn't even understood her own feelings. All she wanted was to make me give up, so she had said whatever it took. Besides, she was about to marry Liam, and she didn't know what he was really like. She figured that with her money, it would be easy to support me if I couldn't work, and that Liam wouldn't mind. Now everything was different. She couldn't dare to make such an empty promise again. I glanced past her and saw a figure lurking behind a pillar. It was Liam, obviously hiding. Remembering that he was the one who had crippled me, I sneered. What are you doing hiding back there? I called out. Khloe turned, her face instantly darkening as Liam stepped out from behind the pillar. His eyes narrowed, fury evident in the lines of his face. Go home, Khloe said coldly, pulling away from him. Liam didn't bother to hide his anger anymore. He reached for Khloe's arm, but she pulled away quickly, her face hardening. You're still the same, Liam said casually, his eyes flicking to me, then lingering on my legs. Our club was about to land a sponsorship from the Millers. Everything was going great. Then the coach comes in and says the deal is off. Turns out it's because you can't race anymore, so you couldn't stand to see the club succeed without you. You had the Millers pull their funding. You're still as selfish as ever, Ethan. Both Ryan and Caleb snapped at him in unison. Shut up. Khloe, forgetting her own fragile state, slapped Liam hard across the face. The force of the blow sent him stumbling back, his cheek turning red and swollen. I snorted in disdain. If you don't have anything intelligent to say, then don't say anything at all. Ryan looked at the two of them with disgust. Such class, the Williams family, he muttered, shaking his head. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Khloe instinctively started to follow, but Liam shoved her to the ground. Khloe, I'm your husband. How can you go running after another man? Liam's voice was full of venom as he grabbed her roughly. Khloe fell hard, and a dark stain of blood began to spread beneath her. Only then did Liam seem to realize the weight of what he had done. She was pregnant. His eyes widened in panic, and he fumbled for his phone, calling an ambulance in a frantic rush. When Mrs. Williams arrived at the hospital and heard what had happened, she slapped Liam across the face, all pretense of decorum gone. You son of a bitch, she screamed, her voice trembling with fury. Why do you always have to cause trouble? Mrs. Williams had been at home when the butler burst in, telling her that Khloe had been rushed to the hospital. Terrified for her daughter and grandchild, she had rushed to the hospital, only to run into one of the Millers' staff at the entrance. The news of Liam's actions had already reached her, and she felt a deep sense of shame. I was no longer the Williams charity case. I was the son of an ambassador. The Williams family's standing had fallen drastically. They couldn't afford to make an enemy of me, especially since the miller's grandson had been there to witness Liam's tirade. The man who had come to question Khloe was Ryan's uncle. After confirming I was all right, Mrs. Williams slapped Liam again, then turned and slapped Khloe. "Do you have any idea who Ethan is now?" she demanded. "And you still dared to go after him? Khloe, after everything you've done, did you really think he would ever forgive you?" Khloe's fist clenched. She looked at Liam, who was whimpering and holding his cheek. After a long moment, she finally spoke. "Mom, I know what I have to do." Her words, instead of reassuring her mother, made her heart clench with dread. "You're going to be the death of me," Mrs. Williams hissed before storming out of the room without another glance. Khloe looked away from the door and turned to Liam, her voice cold as ice. "Get rid of any ideas you might have. Your child is gone. This will not happen again." For her, the miscarriage was a blessing. Now she was free, with no attachments left to hold her back. Seeing the cold determination on Khloe's face, Liam gritted his teeth in silent fury. The day of Mr. Miller's birthday party arrived. The house was filled with guests. After giving our gift, Caleb and I stood off to the side, quietly discussing our trip to the chapel. "It gets a little cold up in the mountains, so make sure you bring a jacket. They have a small cafe there, but we should probably bring some water and snacks," I said. Caleb nodded, then suddenly became aware of a shadow falling over us. He looked up to see Khloe standing right in front of us. "What are you doing here? Are you going to the chapel in the mountains?" I asked, my expression hardening. "I didn't realize you'd taken up eavesdropping." I didn't want to deal with her, so I grabbed Caleb's arm and started to walk away. Khloe started to follow, but she was intercepted by another guest. For the rest of the evening, she didn't get another chance to speak to me. At the mountain chapel, the sky was beginning to lighten, but the fog was thicker than ever. A thick white mist rose from the ground, blanketing the path. Caleb and I made our way up the stone path, slowly ascending toward the chapel at the summit. In the distance, we could hear the faint, lingering sound of the chapel bells. Inside the chapel grounds, ancient trees towered over us, their leaves rustling in the wind. Wind chimes hanging from the eaves tinkled softly. I took a deep breath and sat down on a stone bench in a quiet corner. Caleb, ever the curious one, wandered around taking everything in. It was a peaceful moment, shattered by the arrival of Khloe. She was like a ghost that wouldn't leave me alone. That was the first thought that crossed my mind as I watched her walk toward me. "Ethan, can we please talk?" she asked, her voice soft. Perhaps her mother's words had gotten through to her. She seemed to realize she had been too pushy. I had no desire to talk to her, but I was leaving soon. What if she decided to follow me, refusing to let it go? It was better to settle this once and for all. So I settled back onto the bench and raised an eyebrow. "Fine, say what you have to say." A flicker of hope crossed her eyes and she moved to sit beside me, but I quickly stood up and walked away, stopping under the old oak tree. As she followed, I said flatly, "I don't have much time." Khloe took a deep breath and poured out everything she had been holding in for the past 6 months. She said she had never loved Liam, that their entire relationship had been a charade to make me give up on her. She claimed she had no idea Liam had hurt me, and that she had only saved him first because he was her fiancé at the time. She said they were never legally married, that the baby had been an accident her mother had wanted her to keep, but that she had since miscarried. She was going to get rid of Liam for good. In short, she was begging me to take her back. For the first time, I took a long, hard look at the woman in front of me. She looked the same as she always had, but I felt like I was looking at a complete stranger. "Khloe, it doesn't matter why you were with Liam, the fact is you hurt me. Liam would never have had the guts to do what he did without your permission. You were the one who pushed me away, who hurt me first. He just followed your lead. Honestly, you two deserve each other." The color drained from Khloe's face. She clearly hadn't expected me to say that, but she didn't love Liam, especially not after finding out who he really was. I didn't even look at her. I just kept talking. "You were the one who pushed me away. You were the one who made me give up. I used to love you so much. You were the first person who was ever kind to me after I came to the Williams. You were my entire world. But when you pushed me away, I was forced to see that there was a world outside of you and that I could live without you. You and Liam did so many terrible things. And now you think you can just say, let's start over and erase it all. That's impossible. Because of you, I can never race again. As long as my legs still ache, I will never be able to forgive you." I paused for a moment, then finished coldly. "You're selfish, Khloe. You pretend to be thinking of everyone else, but you're only ever thinking of yourself. You used Liam to push me away, and now you're trying to throw him away to get me back. In your world, people are just tools for you to use. You once promised you would always put me first, that you would never hurt me. You were the one who broke that promise, Khloe. Why should I be the one to forgive you? The truth of my words made her slowly close her eyes. The words she wanted to say caught in her throat, and a bitter taste filled her mouth. She suddenly remembered a night long ago when I had been too scared to sleep, and she had sat by my bed with a little teddy bear, telling me a story. At the end of the story, she had placed the bear by my pillow and whispered, her voice soft but firm, "I'll always protect you. Just like this bear, I will never ever hurt you. You will always be my first choice." As a little boy, my eyes had lit up with surprise. But then I had looked down, mumbling, "You're just saying that." "No," she had insisted. "Let's pinky swear."
If I ever break this promise, you never have to speak to me again.
A silent tear slipped from the corner of her eye. She opened them again, but I was already walking away down the mountain path without a single backward glance. "Ethan!" she called after me. I paused for a moment, but I didn't turn around. She still wouldn't give up.
Is there really no hope for us?
I kept walking without looking back until I disappeared from her view. Khloe finally covered her face and began to sob. "Khloe!" Liam's voice pulled her from her thoughts. The hatred and resentment were gone from his eyes, replaced by a profound sadness. He had done so many terrible things to win her, even betraying me, the only person who had ever been a true friend to him. And after finally getting what he wanted, becoming the man everyone envied, he discovered that the woman he truly loved had her heart set on someone else. His eyes were filled with confusion and helplessness. After hearing our conversation, he finally understood. Khloe didn't love anyone. She only loved herself. His 4 years of effort had all been for nothing, turned to dust and scattered in the wind. He knew that the smart thing to do would be to leave Khloe, to leave the Williams family and never look back. But his own family had downed him, and Mr. and Mrs. Williams despised him. The only thing he had left to cling to was her. So he pushed his sadness aside and reached for her hand. "Khloe, you still have me. We can still make this work, can't we?" But Khloe, just as I had done to her, gave him one look and walked away. The last glimmer of hope in her heart had been extinguished. She knew now that it was truly over between us. I was waiting at the airport gate when I finally saw Caleb rushing toward me. "Where have you been?" "You're so late," I said, pulling him toward the jet bridge. He finally caught his breath and grinned. "I just went to the hospital to watch a comedy unfold." "What are you talking about?" I asked. Liam, in a fit of jealous rage, pushed Khloe down the mountain path. She broke several bones. They didn't find her in time, so both her legs had to be amputated. As for Liam, he lost his footing and fell, crippling his own legs in the process. When Mrs. Williams heard, she fainted from the shock. Mr. Williams ordered the staff to throw them both out as soon as they were discharged to let them fend for themselves. But they didn't even make it out of the hospital. They got into another fight, tumbled down a flight of stairs, and now they're both in comas. Happy? After his report, Caleb looked over at me. I didn't even react. "What does that have to do with me?" I said, shrugging. "The plane's about to take off. I'm going to get some sleep." The plane cut across the sky and disappeared into the clouds. From that moment on, everything that happened in Chicago had nothing to do with me. I was starting my new life.